And for more NASA videos, hit subscribe.
Nice launch trajectory countdown net. Pad is clear.
10, 9, 8.
Launch auto sequence has started.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Go for launch. Vehicle is supersonic. Stage separation confirmed. Dragon, separation confirmed. Stage 1 is transonic. Landing lights have deployed. And Falcon 9 has landed.
You are looking at a live view of Falcon 9 and Dragon awaiting liftoff from Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. In just over 18 minutes, Falcon 9 will lift off carrying Dragon and the CR-31 mission to the International Space Station. Good evening, I'm Yomei Zhou, a lead propulsion engineer here at SpaceX. Dragon will deliver about 3 tons of science, supplies, and equipment to the space station and will return with over 4,000 pounds in about a month. After an almost 13-hour flight, Dragon will autonomously dock to the space station on Tuesday, November 5th at approximately 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. This mission will mark SpaceX's 105th flight of 2024 and Dragon's 5th trip to the station this year. Today's spacecraft will be the first Dragon supporting a cargo mission to fly for the 5th time, and coincidentally, the Falcon 9 booster supporting today's mission will also be making its 5th flight. Reusability is key to everything we do here at SpaceX, and to date, we've reflown Dragon spacecraft on 27 missions and Falcon boosters on 333 missions combined. Dragon is the only U.S. vehicle flying today that can fly round trip to and from the space station, carrying vital supplies and returning safely with critical cargo. The spacecraft flying today may also be the first Dragon to perform initial tests once docked with the station that demonstrate Dragon's reboost capability. These tests are designed to show Dragon's ability to control the station's attitude and altitude, with more on that in just a few minutes. Now, over at the pad, propellant loading began about 15 minutes ago and will complete at the T-minus 2-minute mark. Weather is looking great with only a 30% probability of violating launch weather constraints. The eastern range is green and ready to support, and everything is looking good as we count down to an instantaneous launch attempt at 9:29 p.m. Eastern Time today. With that, let's check in with Joseph at NASA in Houston.
I'm coming to you live from the International Space Station Flight Control Room at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, where our flight controllers, led by Flight Director Ron Spencer and his Gemini flight team, are monitoring the International Space Station, Dragon's ultimate destination after tonight's launch. We're closely following the launch and collaborating with you and the teams in Hawthorne, as well as the Falcon 9 team at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, to ensure that all launch criteria are met. Now, earlier in the countdown, a device called the Lab Router that enables telemetry for the crew on board the International Space Station to monitor Dragon went down. The crew was then briefly awakened from their sleep shift and recycled that router successfully. And right now, I am happy to report that the teams here in Mission Control are go for launch. The International Space Station and its crew members, including NASA astronaut and Commander Sonny Williams, Butch Wilmore, Don Pettit, and Nick Hague, are ready to welcome Dragon with its anticipated docking tomorrow morning. The crew is rested and ready to receive Dragon after witnessing the relocation of Crew 9's Dragon spacecraft after relocating from the forward-facing port of the station's Harmony module, Node 2, or the zenith-facing port of the module to clear its path for the arrival of the commercial resupply mission. Now, as we shift our focus here in Houston to the countdown for Dragon, I'll hand it back to you in Hawthorne for more details on the vehicles involved in this mission. Yomei?
As we continue to count down, let's take a closer look at the vehicles that will be taking CRS-31 to the space station today. Sitting atop the Falcon 9 rocket, Dragon in its trunk stand about 27 feet tall. Dragon has 16 Draco thrusters that can be used in space to help navigate the spacecraft to its destination, each providing 90 pounds of force. Dragon's trunk attached below the spacecraft holds solar cells that power Dragon while it's in free flight, and the trunk can also carry unpressurized cargo, which it will be doing today. About 50 seconds after separation, Dragon's nose cone deploy sequence will begin, exposing its guidance navigation controls that help Dragon autonomously fly to the space station. The nose cone also houses the docking mechanism that will connect with the station. Dragon has played a significant role in advancing our future in space by safely transporting crew and cargo to and from the space station. Altogether, the reusable Dragon spacecraft fleet has completed 9 human spaceflight missions on behalf of NASA and has both visited the station and returned to Earth 43 times under NASA's commercial resupply and commercial crew programs. This particular spacecraft has supported 4 previous commercial resupply missions for NASA, including CRS-21, 23, 25, and 28. And launching Dragon to orbit today is Falcon 9, a 2-stage rocket developed and manufactured by SpaceX, known for its safe, reliable, and cost-effective access to space. Just underneath Dragon, we have the second stage of the vehicle. The second stage is powered by a single Merlin vacuum engine, or MVac, which is optimized to perform in the vacuum of space. And that second stage will secure Dragon's entry into low Earth orbit before separating, leaving Dragon to continue its journey to the space station on its own thrusters. Just below the second stage is the first stage, which contains 8 engines arranged around one center engine, all held in place by a structure called the Octaweb. Each of these Merlin 1D engines delivers about 190,000 pounds of thrust at sea level, which gives Falcon 9 a combined 1.7 million pounds of thrust. The booster supporting today's mission previously launched 4 missions, including Crew 8, Polaris Dawn, and 2 Starlink missions. Now, with T0 coming up in just about 12 and a half minutes, our teams in Florida are doing a series of system checks to ensure Dragon and Falcon 9 are ready to fly. Now, while on station, the CRS-31 spacecraft flying today may also perform 2 initial tests to demonstrate Dragon's ability to control the space station's attitude as well as Dragon's reboost capability. Reboosts are necessary to counteract the effects of atmospheric drag, which can cause the station to lose altitude. Once the station is in a configuration for SpaceX's reboost demo, the aft Draco engines in the service section will fire for just over 12 minutes and give the station a boost. SpaceX has partnered with NASA on the creation of control algorithms to help guide and steer the Dragon and ISS through these dynamic events, which will be the first time Dragon performs tests of this nature on station. SpaceX will leverage data collected during CRS-31 to inform important analyses, which will support future enhanced capabilities and programs like the U.S. Deorbit Vehicle, or USDV. NASA selected SpaceX to develop and deliver the USDV, which will be used to deorbit the space station in a controlled manner after the end of its operational life in 2030. The USDV will be based on today's Dragon, but will feature a redesigned, larger trunk section with more Draco thrusters to help lower the station's orbit. The vehicle will also need 6 times the usable propellant and 3 to 4 times the power generation and storage of today's Dragon spacecraft. Falcon 9 and Dragon have played a significant role in advancing our future in space by safely transporting both crew and cargo to and from the space station. There are currently 3 Dragon capsules used for cargo missions, which have collectively flown 10 CRS missions to date, and there are 4 capsules supporting human spaceflight that have docked to the station. Their names are Endeavour, Resilience, Endurance, and Freedom. Crew 9 arrived on board Dragon Freedom, which is currently docked to the station and is SpaceX's 15th human space mission since 2020, when Dragon became the first private spacecraft to take humans to the International Space Station. As Joseph mentioned, Crew 9 actually just completed a port relocation maneuver from the Ford port to the Zenith port over the weekend to make room for CRS-31 launch today. Now, as the countdown continues, let's check back with Joseph at JSC.
Thank you very much, Yome. Teams here in Houston continue to monitor the countdown of NASA's SpaceX CRS-31 mission with everything on track for a successful launch. 2024 has been a year of important achievements for the International Space Station, showcasing what's possible through collaboration, as NASA's 31st commercial resupply mission with SpaceX marks the 12th launch to the orbiting laboratory this year, and it's clear that success in space is a collective effort, built on dedication and teamwork. Let's take a closer look at how this team effort has kept the station thriving throughout the year.
The year began with Progress 87 delivering essential supplies to the International Space Station. NASA's SpaceX 29th commercial resupply mission followed, bringing critical research and hardware, ensuring support for science aboard the orbiting laboratory. Axiom Mission 3 expanded the station's research capabilities, introducing new perspectives from around the world. In March, NASA's SpaceX Crew 8 launched from Florida, each crew's transition mirroring the importance of coordination and teamwork in maintaining station operations. As the year progressed, NASA's 30th resupply mission with SpaceX and the arrival of additional crew aboard Soyuz MS-25 sustained the flow of research, resources, and explorers. Progress 88 reinforced the station's supply chain, maintaining momentum for new scientific discoveries. As summer arrived, Boeing's Crew Flight Test marked a key milestone in human spaceflight. And Northrop Grumman's NG-21 mission delivered supplies critical to daily life and research. The arrival of Soyuz MS-26 added to the station's capability for long-duration human spaceflight. With the recent arrival of Crew 9, the station continues to be a hub of progress and global cooperation. It's a place where scientists and explorers from across our planet work together, advancing our understanding of life in space, creating opportunities for the future. Every mission this year, from cargo deliveries to crewed launches and hosting 25 residents, reminds us that space exploration is a shared endeavor. The commitment and adaptability of countless individuals, both on Earth and in orbit, keep the station thriving. As we look ahead, we remain focused on building a future where exploration continues to push boundaries for all humanity.
As we reflect on the accomplishments of 2024, it's clear 1 million degrees hotter than the sun's surface. A live Antarctic motion and microgravity on plants. Results could help identify biological systems suitable for use in bioregenerative life support systems on future missions. Dozens of samples will be exposed to space to evaluate material stability and to help researchers better understand the impacts of spaceflight. The results could support better design for spacecraft and satellites. Researchers will demonstrate cold welding techniques in space and evaluate sample integrity. Results could aid in the
Continues to be go for launch. Coming up shortly, the transporter erector, also known as the strongback or TE, will retract away from Falcon. The TE is the large truss structure you see there.
9 tanks are pressing for strongback retract.
Next to the rocket, you just heard that call out that the tanks are pressing in preparation
Is it configured for terminal count?
for strongback retract, and Dragon is in configure for terminal count.
Dragon is in terminal count and is on internal power.
There is that call out for Dragon transitioning to internal power. And ahead of the transporter erector reclining, you'll see the clamp arms just below Dragon
Strongback lower has started.
begin to open. Now the transporter erector is designed to transport, raise, and support Falcon 9 at the launch pad and uses its umbilicals or flexible lines to route the vehicle's fluids, power, and telemetry from ground systems to the rocket and payload until Falcon 9 switches to internal power. There you can see those clamp arms beginning to open right under Dragon at the top of the second stage. You should see that truss structure on the right.
On countdown, LD pulling for MD for final status check. MD is go for launch.
You see the transporter erector reclining from Falcon 9 And there it is, fully reclined from Falcon 9.
The range is also green and ready to support. If for some reason we are not able to launch tonight, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow, Tuesday, November 5th at 8:06 a.m. Central Time, 9:06 a.m. Eastern. At this point in the countdown,
Stage
both the
one,
first and
lock
second
lift,
stages are nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9 will be in startup. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. And just inside T-minus 2 seconds, we'll light the Merlin 1D engines for liftoff.
The vehicle continues to be healthy, and the Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues. Currently, the weather is green, and the range is ready to support a T0 at 9:29 p.m. Eastern Time. Weather is looking good, and in these last few minutes, Falcon 9 is performing final health checks on the primary communications, avionics, and propulsion systems ahead of launch.
Stage 2, lock slow complete.
And with that, we're hearing the checkouts of the second stage thrust vector control actuators underway and referred to as the engine gibble or wiggle test. And this is when SpaceX moves the nozzles ever so slightly to make sure that the guidance hardware is acceptable for flight. And as Dragon now moves into auto idle, continues those checkouts for the first stage engines, and that happens just seconds before ignition. At the time of launch, the International Space Station will be flying some 260 statute miles crossing the Atlantic Ocean.
Falcon 9 is in startup. Dragon is in countdown. SpaceX launch director, go for launch.
There is that final launch director go. All systems are go for launch of Falcon 9 and the CRS-31 mission.
T-minus 30 seconds. Seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition, engine full power, and liftoff. Go SpaceX, go Falcon, go CRS.
Vehicles pushing downrange, and we have liftoff. NASA's SpaceX 31st commercial resupply mission is on its way to the International Space Station, carrying science, supplies, and the spirit of exploration.
Now, during ascent, we will tilt or gimbal the engines, guiding the rocket into what we call a gravity turn. Now, during this turn, the vehicle is flying both up and horizontally away from the launch pad. The rocket
Power telemetry nominal.
typically needs to go 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
avoid getting pulled back down to Earth. You just heard that call out that Falcon 9 is supersonic. And shortly, we'll be throttling the engines back in preparation for max Q.
Max Q.
There's that call for max Q. That's the maximum aerodynamic pressure that the vehicle will see during ascent. And coming up shortly, we will have a few events in quick succession, starting with main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation,
Stage 2 engine chill.
second engine startup 1, and the boost back burn of the first stage. You just heard the call out for the second stage engine chill, starting in preparation for that engine startup. We are just about 30 seconds away from main engine cutoff, where the 9 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage will shut down. Shortly after that, The stage 1 and 2 will separate from one another, and the MVAC engine on the second stage will start. Second engine start 1 is when we ignite that single Merlin vacuum engine of the second stage. Shortly after that, the boost back burn will start on the first stage. There's main engine cutoff.
Main engine cutoff. Stage separation confirmed.
Stage separation.
Stage 2 startup. Stage 1 boost back startup.
And there you can see a beautiful view of the concurrent second stage engine start along with the start of that first stage boost back burn. And really cool views from the second stage engine there and the first stage. Now, if you're just joining us, the first stage on your left is in the middle of its boost back burn, which is the first of 3 burns designed to take the first stage back down to Earth to our landing zone 1. And the second stage is in its burn, carrying Dragon and the CRS-31 mission towards its intended orbit.
Stage 1 boost back shutdown.
There is the end of that boost back burn. Again, that was the first of 3 planned burns of the first stage. And in about 3 minutes, there will be 2 additional burns, the entry burn and the landing burn of that first stage to bring it back down to land at landing zone 1 at Cape Canaveral. We are at T plus 3 minutes and 55 seconds here in today's mission. CRS-31 is SpaceX's 105th launch this year, and we are coming up on the entry burn and then second engine cutoff of the second stage. Now, the entry burn is slated for a little over 2 minutes from now at the T plus 6.5 minute mark, and you should see that on your screen when the first stage performs it. And for that entry burn, we relight 3 of the 9
Vehicles
M1D.
are on a nominal trajectory.
You heard that call out. Vehicles are all on a nominal trajectory. And again, for that entry burn, we will relight 3 of the 9 M1D engines, starting with the center E9 engines, followed shortly after by the E1 and E5 engines, which are on either side of it. And this burn will slow the vehicle down as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. And the reason we need to perform this entry burn is we need to slow down to reduce re-entry forces, which helps us to recover and reuse the first stage. You can follow along on the bottom left and right hand of your screen for the speed and altitude for the first and second stages, respectively. And the second stage, which you can see on your screen right now, is on its first burn. And this is what will be targeting the Dragon orbit, from whence, after Dragon separation, Dragon will continue the rest of its journey to the International Space Station using its own onboard Draco thrusters. We have about 2 minutes left in this burn.
Stage 1 entry burn.
There is the start of the stage 1 entry burn. And this is a 3-engine burn of the first stage, slowing the first stage down as it comes back home.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown. Stage 1 FTS is saved.
And there is that call out for a good entry burn and the flight termination system being saved. Really cool views of the nighttime on the Cape Canaveral coast. The first stage that supporting today's mission will perform has performed this entry burn for the 5th time. And Falcon 9 is the world's first orbital class reusable rocket. And this is important because it allows us to reuse the most expensive parts of the rocket, which drives down the access to space. We should see that landing burn starting in just a few moments.
Stage 1 landing burn.
There is the start of the Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing is confirmed.
What a beautiful view of that
terminal guidance.
first stage landing. And with that landing marks SpaceX's 360-second recovery of an orbital class rocket, including the first stage landings for Falcon 9 and Heavy. And we are coming up on second engine cutoff 1 here on the second stage in just a few moments.
Stage 2 shutdown.
There is that call out for SECO 1. You can see that MVAC engine slowly cooling off.
Nominal orbit insertion.
There is that confirmation of a good orbit. Looks like we are on track for Dragon separation in just a few minutes here at the T plus 9 minute and 25
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
second mark. You see that MVAC engine continuing to cool down. And we are waiting for Dragon separation here in just a few moments.
Dragon separation confirmed.
There is confirmation of Dragon separation. You could just see it floating away there. Now, if you're just joining us, we did have a successful launch from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. And everything has proceeded nominally so far. We had stage separation occurred at about 2.5 minutes into flight, and that was followed by a successful landing of Falcon 9's first stage on landing zone 1. And that marked the 5th landing for this particular booster. And for those of you following along, this Dragon spacecraft previously supported 4 commercial resupply missions for NASA, including CRS-21, 23, 25, and 28. At about a few minutes ago, we had a successful second engine cutoff, or SECO 1, and this was followed by a confirmation of a good orbital insertion. We recently saw Dragon separation floating away from the second stage as it begins its journey to the International Space Station. We should see the start of nose cone deploy here for Dragon shortly as well. A very exciting sight to see. Dragon, you saw, was drifting away from Falcon 9's second stage, confirming spacecraft separation. Let's check in with Joseph as we prepare for nose cone deploy and preview what's in store for the rest of the flight.
Thank you very much, Yome, and we're following along here from Mission Control in Houston. A wonderful launch of Dragon from the historic launch pad 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And it's great to see Dragon in orbit and starting its journey on the way to the International Space Station. We're continuing our coverage here in Mission Control Houston and awaiting for the nose cone to deploy. And that is currently about to begin here in just a few moments. The nose cone is at the very tip of the Dragon spacecraft. And once it's deployed, it will expose course, the 4 forward bulkhead Dracos. These Draco thrusters will execute a series of maneuvers necessary to raise Dragon's orbit and meet up with the International Space Station, and all that will begin in a little over half an hour from now. Now, for Dragon overall, it is carrying well over 3 tons of cargo that is heading to the International Space Station and the Expedition 71 crew, and that includes crew supplies, of course, science investigations, spacewalk equipment, vehicle hardware, and computer resources. And one thing that the Dragon is carrying also is a lot of food for the crew on board, and a common and fun question we get here at NASA is what kinds of delectables are inside Dragon and are on their way to the station for that crew who are anxiously awaiting them. And we did receive a note that there is a fresh food kit that includes some fruits and vegetables, much like citrus and apples, some blueberries, sweet onions, and all that on its way inside Dragon right now. There are also 4 zipper crew kits, including crew preferences of coffee. With the holidays arriving, there's 1 bulk overwrap bag, or bob, that features special occasion holiday items like lobster, crab, and quail. In addition to these items, there are also 110, that's right, 110 bulk overwrap bags containing standard food menu items, as well as some crew preference choices along the way. Now, as we take a look at the control rooms that are monitoring Dragon's progress and the International Space Station, there on your left, the International Space Station Flight Control Room, which is where we are here in Mission Control Houston. And then, of course, on the right, the teams in SpaceX monitoring Dragon's journey. And now this journey is going to continue on into the early morning hours and through the phasing burns that will be required to get Dragon to the space station by both teams, and then they'll come together jointly just before docking to work and connect the cargo craft to the orbiting laboratory. And we're continuing to await the nose cone deploy of the Dragon craft as we continue to monitor everything here from Mission Control Houston. Now, we mentioned a series of burns required for the spacecraft once it reaches orbit, which it just did. And now in about 30 minutes or so, we will see that first round of what will be 5 burns that will take Dragon onto its next phase of the mission. So as we continue to await the confirmation of nose cone deploy, let's take a closer look at the next several hours and what's in store for the Dragon spacecraft. Now, immediately after Dragon is separated from the Falcon 9, it begins what we call the activation and rendezvous phase of the mission. And during this phase, Dragon is configured for on-orbit operations. And this phase begins after the separation of Dragon from Falcon 9 and ends with the completion of the final co-elliptic burn. Our initial orbit today is 190 kilometers by 210 kilometers. And with those values representing the perigee and apogee of the orbit, or the lowest and highest points over Earth. That means the orbit isn't a perfect circle, but more like a very slight ellipse. Now, over the next several hours after liftoff, Dragon will execute a series of burns, which will gradually raise its orbit to align more closely with the station. And there are 5 major burns, or firings, of those Draco thrusters on Dragon that will bring the spacecraft close to station before we begin those final approach maneuvers. As we take a look inside the nose cone of Dragon as we speak, as the nose cap is opening right in front of us and continuing to watch the nose cone deploy, again exposing those forward bulkhead thrusters that will begin those 5 phasing burns for the spacecraft, and we will get video back as soon as possible. But could quickly take a look at some of those burns as the nose cone approaching the about halfway point of opening. The first burn is the phase burn, and that's the first major one that's going to come in about 33 minutes from now, and that's performed at the apogee, or the highest point of the initial orbit, and will raise Dragon's perigee, or lowest point, to a higher altitude. And then from there, we'll transfer over to the boost burn, which will happen in the early morning hours. The next burn, based on what our orbital data will show us, is that'll raise Dragon's orbit until its orbit reaches an altitude that is just 10 kilometers lower than the space station. And from there, we'll move into burn number 3, the close co-elliptic burn. And that's followed soon by to place Dragon on an orbit roughly co-elliptic with the International Space Station. And this means that the crew will be about 10 kilometers lower than the space station itself during the entire orbit around the Earth. And then we move into burn number 4, which will be the transfer burn. And this is called the transfer burn, where we will be raising Dragon's apogee, or again, the highest point of its orbit, to just 2.5 kilometers below the station. As we continue to monitor the nose cone deploy of Dragon as we speak, about 3/4 of the way there to transfer us into the burn breakdown of the fifth burn, the final co-elliptic burn, and that is where we will round out everything with that final co-elliptic burn to once again maintain a constant orbit beneath the station, this time just 2.5 kilometers below. And then from there, Dragon will get ready to line itself up, fine-tuning its way before docking in the early morning hours of tomorrow, and that'll start with the approach initiation and then make its way on to waypoint 0. As we continue coverage in a successful on-time launch of NASA's SpaceX 31st Commercial Resupply Services mission en route to the International Space Station. As nose cone deploy just a moment away from locking into position. And we just received confirmation that the nose cone has indeed been deployed, exposing those Draco thrusters that will help the spacecraft climb its way and begin its journey en route to the International Space Station. Now that the nose cone is deployed, Dragon is ready for its phasing burns to the International Space Station with a successful orbital insertion. And I'm now joined by Bill Spetch, Operations Integration Manager of the International Space Station. Bill, thank you very much for joining us.
Great to be here.
We've discussed the crucial role of collaboration and teamwork and dedication in making missions like this possible and ensuring a continuous flow of science, technology, and resources. How have you witnessed this in your team's preparation for this mission and in recent missions?
Well, you know, operating a world-class orbiting laboratory requires extensive collaboration across all aspects of the ISS program. We have adapted to numerous items that were not as we originally planned, and we have the best team in the world, and really around the world, working solutions to every potential problem that could arise. Most recently, the outstanding international collaboration around the very busy traffic schedule to ISS, and adjusting to that ever-changing launch and landing schedule while we prepared for the future by adding new capabilities to the ISS.
It certainly has been a busy time for the space station. It feels like it's been like that for quite some time now. And with this cargo mission, add that to the traffic dossier for this mission. Well, in addition to the cargo being delivered aboard it, another important aspect of this mission is showcasing the spacecraft's reboost capabilities. We touched upon it earlier in the broadcast of this importance and what it means to the International Space Station. But can you explain the significance of this ability and its importance for the space station?
Yeah, the ISS requires periodic boosts to maintain its orbit around the Earth. And normally these are completed by Progress, the Zvezda service module, or even Cygnus. It is important to us to continue to add capability to the ISS, and performing reboosts with Dragon is an awesome addition to that capability. Plus, this allows the team to gather data that helps inform the design and operation eventually of the UST orbit vehicle.
In your time and in your career with the International Space Station, you focused on maintaining its health and its integrity. How do missions like this one help achieve those goals while also advancing the station's capabilities, like you just touched upon with some of the traffic coming to and fro, also the scientific research and the technological developments?
You know, ISS depends on a steady flow of supplies to safely maintain and continue on with its mission. This mission delivers examples of all those needs for the vehicle. Dragon will deliver food, spares, and of course the very important science that we conduct on board. Dragon also returns items to the ground. This allows us to refurbish hardware instead of building new copies, investigate designs and improve reliability for future spaceflight endeavors,
and allows the scientific sample return to Earth that furthers research.
Well, we look forward to seeing all that this mission has to have in store, especially those reboost capabilities for this Dragon spacecraft. Bill Spetch, Operations Integration Manager of the International Space Station. Sir, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Dragon now begins its journey towards the International Space Station, using phasing burns to gradually close in the distance. This process will take about a day and a half, with approach and docking expected actually early tomorrow morning at 9:15 a.m. Central Time, 10:15 a.m. Eastern. Tune in to NASA Plus for live coverage of the final approach and docking starting at 7:45 a.m. Central Time, 8:45 a.m. Eastern, with docking expected around 9:15 a.m. Central, 10:15 a.m. Eastern. With a couple of hours after docking and settling in, the Expedition 72 crew will perform a series of leak checks, and the crew will begin to then unload the Dragon spacecraft. For the latest updates, be sure to visit nasa.gov. We will see you tomorrow for docking, and until then, let's check in one more time with Yome and our team in Hawthorne. This is Mission Control Houston.
Thanks, Joseph. The Dragon supporting CRS-31 will return to Earth in about 1 month. SpaceX is honored to be a part of NASA's Commercial Resupply Services initiative to deliver critical cargo to the space station. We thank NASA for entrusting us with today's mission. This mission marks our 105th of the year and our 400th successful liftoff of Falcon. Thank you to the entire SpaceX team and to all of our customers for helping to make this incredible journey possible. And congratulations to the SpaceX and NASA teams for tonight's successful launch. Make sure to follow SpaceX on X and check out spacex.com/launches for up-to-date missions and schedules. Thanks as always for tuning in and have a good night.
This is NASA TV.
You're looking at the Crew Dragon spacecraft and Falcon 9 rocket set to carry 3 American astronauts and 1 Japanese astronaut to the International Space Station in just a few hours. Today begins the first full-duration science mission of NASA's Commercial Crew program.
At 7:27 p.m. Eastern Time this evening, NASA astronauts Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, Shannon Walker, and Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Soichi Noguchi will lift off from this historic launch complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center and begin their 6-month journey in orbit. This mission, known as Crew 1, will be the first American-launched mission with astronauts aboard since the Demo 2 test flight this past summer.
Here's our first live look inside the suit-up room.
Wow, it is so exciting to see this, isn't it? All 4 of them.
Yeah, it's just, okay, so there's a look at Commander, that looks like Mike Hopkins.
Yeah. so each astronaut has an assigned crew team member to make sure they're part of our suit-up team. And that suit-up lead or assigned crew member is essentially responsible for communicating any feedback, making sure that we're getting thumbs up, verbal goes, that everything is fitting well and is comfortable.
Here they come, walking down the hall.
Quite peppy there.
Yeah, so cool. They're looking for people. They're looking for the people that have helped them all along the way, too, and wanting to make eye contact.
Yep. That banner behind them in the elevator holds the signatures of many of the team members who worked so hard to make sure that this spacecraft and rocket is as safe as possible for this crew.
Oh, here they come.
Here they come. The Crew 1 astronauts now beginning their journey to the launch pad ahead of this historic mission to the International Space Station.
Outside the ONC building, we have friends and family gathered there for final goodbyes prior to liftoff with our astronauts.
And that's a very different thing to the shuttle days. The last time we saw our families would have been at what we call the wave across the ditch, the day before launch. And typically for shuttle launches, you would have employees and people that would come out to wish us well. I think it's a very special thing that the crew's families get that up close and personal right before they get into the crew transport vehicles to the pad.
You notice everyone keeping as a safe distance here, but that distance would be enforced regardless of whether COVID-19 was a factor in what's going on. That distance is maintained regardless.
I can't get a good read at the license plate this time, but I remember for demo 2 they said ISS bound.
Yeah, that's good.
I think another one might say later Earth.
This is Core on countdown 1 for timeline. The crew is departing for the pad on schedule.
All right, so we just heard the call out from the Core that the crew is departing for the pad, and they are right on schedule. Again, they are leaving the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building, now beginning a 20-minute ride, 20 minutes or so across NASA's Kennedy Space Center. They're going to drive right behind where we're sitting. We can't wait for that. And out to Launch Pad 39A. Okay, and here's our first look at that level where they come out of the elevator. Now they're going to make their way around because they have a handful of stairs to climb to get up to the level where the crew access arm is. That's that long suspended walkway. So here they go up the steps.
Oh, look how beautiful.
It's been a long time since I've had the privilege of being up there and seeing that view up in person, but it is just, words don't do it justice.
Yeah.
Okay, and so this will be Victor and Soichi now approaching the pad. So Mike and Shannon got a head start. Victor and Soichi are making their way to the elevator now. I wonder if they're going to stop and
they gotta
strain, or maybe they've already done that to get a look up. And we're having a lot of fun here. We know the crew is having a blast. There they are.
Again.
I knew they were going to do it. Here's a look inside the crew access arm from the inside.
I love this shot.
Yeah.
When this was being designed, it was definitely a forward-thinking design that we went with. We really wanted it to encapsulate the experience of the next era of spaceflight, really wanting to make it look futuristic, as with the suits and the capsule itself. We now see Shannon adding her signature to the wall. So in keeping with tradition, we painted this room white, and The advanced team, once again, I'll talk about them. Part of their responsibility, also making sure that there's a Sharpie on hand so that crew members can add their names to our signature wall. Bob and Doug did this prior to their flight, and I love that this is really the last thing you do before you get in our spaceship. I just love that there's an opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the list of names grow over time.
Hi. I feel like he's watching us.
You know, it's hard to see in that shot, but I'm very happy to say that we got blue skies and a couple of puffy white clouds working with us. So while it might look a little overcast on the screen, we're pretty happy with what we've got at the moment.
And you can see the little shadows of them moving along through the windows into the white room. Almost there.
I love this view inside Crew Dragon, and as you saw, there are 4 seats configured right now, and they're numbered 1 to 4 from right to left when you're looking at the seats. Mike Hopkins is in seat 2, that's the commander's seat, and then Victor Glover will be beside him in seat 3. That for Crew Dragon is the pilot seat. Soichi Noguchi is in seat 1, and Shannon Walker is in seat 4.
Once they're all finished getting buckled in, those seats will also rotate into launch position. Right now, it does look like they're a little further away from those display panels, but once they rotate backwards, those display panels will be right in front of them and easy to access.
Now we're coming up on T-minus 47 minutes, and the SpaceX team is finishing up their go-no-go polls. We're waiting for a few more people to give the electronic thumbs up, so that then the SpaceX launch director can check that item off and then proceed into the remainder of the countdown, which will include propellant loading at T-minus 35 minutes.
Poll is complete and the team is ready for crew access arm retract, propellant loading, and launch.
And it looks like the crew access arm has already begun to retract away. Just a beautiful sight.
So this is one of the last major visual milestones that we have before launch.
Stage 1 fuel load is complete.
Okay, right on time, and a great view of Dragon. Sitting on top of the Falcon 9 as we're continuing to load liquid oxygen onto both the first and second stages. The RP-1 kerosene fuel is now completely loaded on both Stage 1 and Stage 2. All continues to go well, just under 6 minutes to launch.
Dragon is in configure for terminal count. Dragon is on internal power. Falcon 9 propellant tanks are pressurizing for Strombeck retract.
And as you can hear those sounds, like Soichi Noguchi said, the vehicle is alive.
Dragon seat countdown. FTS is armed. Falcon 9 is a startup and is now controlling.
50 seconds now until liftoff. That FTS you heard is flight termination.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
SpaceX, this is Resilient. Roger, go.
Go for launch, and at 37 seconds, the International Space Station flying over Kennedy Space Center.
All for one, Crew 1 for all.
Crew Dragon poised to go catch it. 20 seconds till liftoff.
T-minus 15 seconds. Falcon 9 is configured for flight. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
And resilience rises. Not even gravity contains humanity when we explore as one for all.
And we'll need propulsion
That's the word we want to hear. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Into this historic mission, flying crew on board Dragon and Falcon 9. Stage 1 is preparing to throttle down. This is in preparation for max Q, which is maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Stage 1, throttle down.
There's that call out for throttle down.
Power and telemetry continue to be nominal for the vehicle, now traveling at 262 meters per second.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
There's that call out. The Falcon 9 is supersonic, and we will be passing through max Q here shortly, the largest structural load during ascent.
Max Q.
And there's that call out. That Falcon has passed through max Q.
1 Bravo.
And we've just entered Stage 1 Bravo abort mode. That's going to take them through the end of the first stage burning just before second stage activates off the coast of North Carolina. T+1 minute and 40 seconds into flight. Dragon and Falcon 9 traveling 709 meters per second. That call that MVAC chill is underway, the Merlin vacuum engine.
Now with the call out of MVAC de-chilling, similar to what we saw in the first stage Merlin engines, the second stage engine being prepared for its ignition coming up in just over 30 seconds from now. We're a half a minute away from 3 quick events in rapid succession. We're going to get main engine cut off. The 9 Merlin engines will throttle down and then shut down. We're going to get stage separation.
Stage 1, throttle down.
And then ignition of the second stage engine. We've begun the throttle down in preparation for stage separation.
And we have
2 Alpha.
Stage separation confirmed.
And you see that stage separation has confirmed. There goes that MVAC engine. Stage 2. Crew 1 is now on their way to the International Space Station. On the right side of your screen, you see Stage 2 continuing to burn. Over on the left-hand side is Stage 1 preparing for its return to Earth.
And we've got ignition of the entry burn, center engine, followed by the other 2 restart engines. First stage now getting ready to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. This is about a 29-second burn, and it's designed to slow the vehicle way down. We're going to shed about 70% of the velocity of that dropping first stage by the time this landing burn completes.
MVAC shut down.
And we've got shutdown of the second stage engine on time.
Dragon SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
Launch escape system is disarmed.
And SpaceX copies.
And Leah, the words we like to hear, a nominal orbit insertion.
That's right, John. Nominal orbit insertion, as we mentioned, Stage 2. Oh, looks like some action on Stage 1. And I believe we've had a touchdown on the drone ship.
We've got Stage 1 has touched down on the drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. But now the more important news, second stage is in orbit, right where we want, right on time. And we're getting ready for our next major activity, which will be Dragon spacecraft separation. Now currently on the second stage, we are essentially venting pressure, purging the engine out, making sure everything is quiet in preparation.
Take a look. That's inside Crew Dragon right now. Our Crew 1 crew now coasting in low Earth orbit, still attached to that second stage. In just a couple of minutes, we should see that second stage separate and Crew Dragon will be flying free.
Dragon separation confirmed.
And separation confirmed. You can see that second stage departing. Crew Dragon leaving it behind.
Separation confirmed.
Confirmation from teams on the ground and the crew. You can see them monitoring those 3 display panels, monitoring their journey to the International Space Station and where they are in the world right now, or over the world, I should say.
And Dragon SpaceX, just for timeline awareness, burn is in about just under 1 minute.
And copy that. We see it starts in 40 seconds. And just for your awareness, both MS-1 and pilot are out of their suits, and they're getting them strapped into their seats this time.
Copy all.
Phase burn has begun. We are a minute underway, so good news there. And it should last about 9.5 minutes, raising the perigee, or the lowest point of Dragon's current orbit, to a higher altitude.
And as you can see live, they have now revealed to us the 0G indicator, and it looked like a little baby Yoda.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if we might hear a little bit more about that later, that choice, but did look like another crew member floating around with them.
Yeah. Very cool to see them as they're actually coasting to the International Space Station.
Yeah, first 4-person capsule that has ever flown, and so that's another big first for the mission. This is a view over the shoulder of our commander, Mike Hopkins, and pilot, Victor Glover, taking a look at some of the systems aboard Crew Dragon. Pretty neat to see them interacting with those touch screens.
We've got Baby Yoda on board trying to take a seat right now, I guess.
I know, I think that's Victor Glover's seat, so hope he doesn't mind.
Maybe Baby Yoda's trying to pilot the vehicle. But some pretty cool views. The crew members are hanging out, quite literally, as they coast to the International Space Station.
Dragon SpaceX, 2 items for TCS configuration.
And go ahead for TCS config.
Dragon for the TCS Loop Bravo caution.
Small 104, Crew Dragon approach and retreat monitoring. Copy steps 3 and 4.
Next Dragon on the big loop. Our visors are down.
Copy, visors down.
With the crew confirming their visors down, we should see the final approach resume.
Station Dragon on the big loop. We are inbound from approach 2.
Copy, inbound.
Mission copy.
And we're going to be racing that sunset. The approach has resumed. Dragon closing in. We're inside 20 meters. And yeah, that crew hands-off point should come up in about 3 minutes or so. right before we get that final docking. It comes about 20 seconds prior, or just about 2 meters away from the station still. And that's just the crew not issuing any abort commands. At that point, it would be too late, and so any aborts would be executed automatically by Dragon itself. So we're closing in at less than 1/10 of a meter per second at this point.
You can see the surface section Dracos just doing all these very small, minor attitude corrections. Really, the autonomous docking system at work, making sure that the vestibule and the soft capture system is lined up with IDA2. It's the International Docking Adapter. You can see much more clearly there the hinge mechanism for the nose cone. Those 4 black circles are the forward bulkhead Dracos, not to be used at this time. And then, of course, the pedals of the soft capture system. Wow.
Dragon on the big loop. We're inside 10 meters. We cannot make out the docking target, but we do see the outline.
We copy and concur, 10 meters.
All right, we're less than 10 meters away. Again, we're closing at that rate of less than 1/10 of a meter per second. We should be just about 1 minute 45 seconds away from docking.
There is a centerline camera right in that middle, so that you can see where the forward hatch is, and right in the middle of that there's a window and there's a centerline camera that is aligned with the center of the vehicle and the center of the docking mechanism. So that is what the autonomous docking system is using to line up with sort of a cross-hatch, cross-target on the docking port. Again, the forward docking port on PMA2, or the pressurized mating adapter.
And we are just 5 meters away. Again, we're racing that sunset. This Dragon continues to close, 4 meters to go.
Those shadows of the space station on the vehicle. Yeah, you can actually see the centerline camera pretty clearly there. Sort of with the contrast of the sun right now.
3 meters to go. Two meters. We are inside the hands-off point, the chop, the crew hands-off point. 1 meter to go. Soft capture complete.
Dragon is soft capture confirmed. Stand by for retraction and docking.
Standing by.
And we just heard it, soft capture. We have docking, that coming at 7:16 a.m. Pacific time, with the station and Dragon flying 262 statute miles right over the border between northern China and Mongolia.
You saw a little bit of motion there of Dragon. It was that relative motion that the soft capture system is damping out. Once that motion is clear, then the soft capture system will be retracted, and Dragon will go for hard capture.
Again, if just now tuning in, that soft capture, that docking coming 7:16 a.m. Pacific, 10:16 a.m. over on the East Coast. Dragon and the International Space Station were flying 262 statute miles right over the border between northern China and Mongolia. So that soft capture ring now going to retract. It's one more step on the way to docking complete.
Copy. Proceed on board.
Yeah, and so the next step here is once the soft capture ring is retracted, there are 12 latches that we refer to as hard capture latches. Those are what will really create that pressure-tight seal between the Dragon spacecraft and the International Space Station. So once soft capture is complete, and I believe we'll get that call from our core here, Anna, then we'll get confirmation of hard capture, and the crew, of course, aboard have this information on their displays, so they'll also see indication of hard capture complete. And once those two steps are done, then that's docking complete.
That's right. We're expecting to hear some words from everybody. A pretty monumental moment. I mean, for Doug Hurley, he's returning to where he last docked almost 9 years ago on the very last space shuttle mission, now commanding the very first commercial spacecraft to deliver astronauts to the International Space Station.
That's got to be cool for them. They've mentioned quite a few times that they're best friends, our favorite dads in space, as we've been calling them. This has got to be really cool for them. It's got to be really cool for their families, too, watching this.
It looks like we have another quick handover. We'll get that video back shortly. We're about 75% complete already with that retraction. Once that retraction is completed, we'll keep an eye out for the 12 ready-to-hook indicators. Once those are ready, those 12 hooks will begin to engage, and that'll securely attach Dragon to the International Space Station.
Yeah, so right now the vehicle confirming that the soft capture system is deployed correctly and is fully retracted. And then once the soft capture system is fully retracted, that'll set up the vehicle to put in the hard capture pins. There's 12 of those around the docking ring, and that's what creates that airtight seal between the Dragon spacecraft and the International Space Station. The volume between, which we refer to as the vestibule, is currently not pressurized. Of course, it was just exposed to the vacuum of space until literally minutes ago, about 4 minutes ago. So just waiting for the vehicle to get that.
Dragon SpaceX, ring retraction complete. Docking sequence is holding for MCS reconfiguration.
All right, so we see those ready-to-hook indicators are lighting up green, so we should be just about to step into those 12 hooks beginning to engage to get that secure mate between Dragon and the International Docking Adapter on the space station.
Wow, right now those two vehicles are flying together. They are attached to each other.
It's been just under 19 hours since we lifted off. We're actually at about 18 hours, 58 minutes, and 42 seconds. So we promised about a 19-hour ride up to station, and we made it just a few minutes before that. They were able to dock a few minutes ahead of schedule. We were tracking them to still take about another 10 minutes, but able to step through all of their burns about 16 minutes ahead of schedule and get us to where we are now. If you missed it just a few moments ago, that initial docking coming at 7:16 a.m. Pacific, 10:16 a.m. over on the east coast of the United States, and they were 262 statute miles flying together over the northern border of China and Mongolia. So really exciting. We're just waiting for this docking complete to be confirmed. We're expecting to hear some words, obviously, from the crew on board and all the excited teams down here. We're just waiting for this moment. And then it's time to start getting Dragon integrated into the station. There will be an umbilical that will get mated, and that'll allow Dragon to flow data and power into the station systems, and then it'll be over to the crew.
Endeavour and station at Houston on the big loop. MCS is configured. We're proceeding with hook driving.
All right, and they did a quick, so the motion control system onboard station now back under those control moment gyros, so handed over from the Russian thrusters, and Dragon now given the go to drive those hooks. We have to do that changeover of attitude control before we drive those hooks, as the Russian thrusters a little bit more dynamic in their control of attitude, and if you had a thruster firing while you were starting to drive those hooks, that could miss a line. So going over to the smoother control moment gyros on the U.S. side, now controlling the attitude on board the station, and those hooks, those 12 hooks on Dragon, about to start driving.
Right now, Dragon and ISS attached, just flying off the east coast of China, just underneath Japan. Attached to each other, we recently passed over to the orbital night, so we're on the currently the dark side of the world. And actually, we're lucky enough to see soft capture happen just as we were crossing over the Terminator line.
And if you're wondering what you're looking at, this is one of the cameras on the very outboard part of the Japanese experiment module, looking back in towards the very front part of Node 2, where Dragon is currently docked. We are in an orbital nighttime, that's why everything is so dark, but you're looking at Dragon. It is horizontal to the ground, so the hatch part is right where that green light pretty much is. You can see the nose cone still illuminated above it, and it is currently attached to an international docking adapter on the International Space Station.
And inside that capsule are Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, first astronauts to fly on a privately developed vehicle up to the International Space Station. Both test pilots got to do some fun tests today. Have a few more steps before they can actually get aboard. Sure that we have an airtight seal. We're keeping all of that valuable life support in the vehicle. Now the combined ISS Dragon vehicle.
Meanwhile, inside the capsule, Bob and Doug also standing by for this hard capture to complete. And once we have that docking complete call, they'll be able to start stepping through a number of procedures to get them ready to move into the International Space Station. They'll get the go-ahead to doff or get out of their suits, and then they'll have some activities on the Dragon side to prepare for the hatch opening. Chris Cassidy will mainly be working on the station side to pressurize the vestibule. So as Shiv has talked about, the space between the Dragon capsule and the space station was exposed to vacuum, and even after this tight seal has occurred, we'll still be at vacuum inside. So we'll actually open up a valve to supply air from the station side into that space between the Dragon and station hatchways, and they'll get it up to the same ambient pressure that we'll have inside of Dragon and on the station itself. They'll wait for it to thermally balance out, make sure we don't have any temperature swings as we're bringing it up from vacuum, so probably from a very cold temperature up to about 72 degrees that they have in their cabin temperature on board the station, and then we'll get the hatches open.
Dragon SpaceX, hard capture complete. Stand by for docking completion.
And now that hard capture is complete, so that's confirmation of those 12 latches to create that airtight seal. Now that's complete, the umbilicals from the station side will interface with the Dragon vehicle umbilicals, and that'll provide power and communications through space station directly to Dragon. Pretty much the whole way up, Dragon's been using a combination of batteries and its solar cells pointed at the sun to make sure that it has enough electrical power for the journey up.
And we're just standing by now for that umbilical to get mated, and that's going to, again, as Shiv was just saying, start the power and data transfer between Dragon and the space station. They've been transmitting data through RF radio frequency on the way uphill. And during the final approach, this will give a hard mate, basically a wired LAN connection between the Dragon spacecraft and the International Space Station itself, and then also being able to draw power from the station systems using those great big solar arrays that are used to generate all of the electricity for systems on board the station. And the soft capture system has been stowed. We see the umbilical starting to deploy. About 40% of the way so far, going pretty quickly. Should just take a couple more seconds until we're all the way connected. And then we should be getting that docking complete call out from the core here in Mission Control, SpaceX and Hawthorne. Standing by.
Dragon SpaceX docking sequence is complete.
Dragon, we copy docking complete. To say that it's been a real honor to be just a small part of this 9-year endeavor since the last time a United States spaceship has docked with the International Space Station. We have to congratulate the men and women of SpaceX at Hawthorne, McGregor, and at Kennedy Space Center. Their incredible efforts over the last several years to make this possible cannot go overstated. I'd also like to thank Kathy Leaders and her team of the Commercial Crew Program of NASA. An outstanding job by everyone. Last, I'd like to thank the men and women of the National Aeronautics and Space Agency. This is an incredible time to be at NASA. 3 new vehicles to be flown, continuing mission in low Earth orbit, and then to the moon and Mars. We thank you again and congratulate you.
Dragon arriving. Crew of Expedition 63 is honored to welcome Dragon and the Commercial Crew Program to welcome aboard the International Space Station. Bob and Doug, glad to have you as part of the crew. Well done. Bravo Zulu.
So happy. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris.
Endeavour, this is Houston. Bob and Doug, welcome to the International Space Station after your spectacular rendezvous and docking of the first Crew Dragon vehicle. For the first time since the retirement of the Space Shuttle, you've completed a historic ride to the ISS and have opened up a new chapter in human space exploration. On behalf of the flight control teams here in Houston and in Hawthorne, California, and to our SpaceX colleagues, bravo on a magnificent moment in spaceflight history and on the start of a new journey that has changed the face of space travel in this new era of space transportation. Bob and Doug, good luck, and we look forward to working with you on board.
Dragon SpaceX, Bob and Doug, we here at SpaceX are honored to have been part of ushering in this new era of human spaceflight. On behalf of the SpaceX and NASA partnership, congratulations on a phenomenal accomplishment and welcome to the International Space Station.
Well, thank you, Anna. We appreciate all the good words and everyone thanking us, but it truly was a magnificent effort by the entire team. the SpaceX team, the NASA team, and a team across America who was able to pull this off and bring human spaceflight again to our nation. Thanks for everything. Happy to be aboard.
And Dragon SpaceX, with that, ground will be enabling hardline power and comm connection shortly. You are go to doff your suits per procedure 4.012. We will be configuring your video to go external shortly, and we have one request for Bob's suit doffing when you're ready to copy.
We copy all. Go ahead for Bob's suit.
During your approach suit leak check, we noticed Bob's suit pass with a lower PSID than his previous vehicle and O&C checks. We still had plenty of margin to support you in a depress, but in order to rule out potential hardware issues, when Bob is doffing, after he opens his structural zipper, check all 3 bladder zipper heads to see if any are partially closed. It is possible that if the head is backed off slightly, that the white tooth is partially visible or a small gap can be seen between the end of the zipper head and the gasket end. Please report observations.
Copy. Bob will take a close look at his zippers when he doffs, and he'll get doffing first, so we'll let you know as soon as we see something or if we see something.
Great. Thank you so much.
Wow. So now Dragon has completed its docking sequence. There's a number of checks. That was an absolutely historic moment. And in spite of that, the ground team's getting right back to business, talking about the suit performance.
Just let us know when the interior cameras are secured.
On Dragon to ground,
gotta turn the cameras off first before we can get them out of their suits.
Absolutely. So spacecraft is now docked. They've got several tasks that they're going to need to be able to do. While we're waiting for those tasks to happen, we're actually going to take a short break. But if, in case you just missed it, the Dragon spacecraft is now docked to the International Space Station, docked at 7:16 a.m. local time.
Yep.
Bob and Doug are at the space station.
Yeah, they're there. It was just under a 19-hour journey from their launch to their docking, so pretty much right on what we were expecting. They got there a little bit early today, which was nice, as they were able to get through all those burns. But they're docked. It's going to be a little while. They have to do that vestibule pressurization, and then they'll have to do some leak checks.
Dragon on Dragon to ground for Bob. I've got both structural zippers on my gloves lowered, and I do see white teeth visible on both sides. It looks like a full white tooth. I'll give you an update once I get to the leg zipper.
Copy. White teeth on both sides, and we'll await your next status.
So the crew right now just going through some checks of their gloves. They're about to get out of their suits. That'll be the first step for the crew on board Dragon. For the crew on board station, Chris Cassidy's going to start getting that vestibule pressurized, and then they're going to do leak checks. So they're going to be actually taking atmosphere from station, putting it into that vestibule, and then once we get all the leak checks done, things are thermally stabilized, it'll be time for hatch opening. We'll be able to see Bob and Doug get into the space station for the first time from on board the Dragon spacecraft. And again, for Doug Hurley, this is the exact port he was at almost 9 years ago when he was on the very last space shuttle mission, and now he's commanding the first commercial vehicle to dock with the International Space Station. I think that's going to do it for us in Hawthorne. We're going to give you into the very capable hands of Gary Jordan to take you through the rest of the hatch opening. We're going to be watching from here and following along. We can't wait to see these crew members on board the International Space Station. Thank you for everybody who tuned in. We hope you enjoyed the launch. We hope you enjoyed the ride uphill. we really hope you were with us every single moment from suit up until now, so you've been up for over 24 hours. But it's been an incredible experience for us to see these guys get on board the International Space Station, to watch Dragon go through the paces, to be lofted into orbit on Falcon 9. Something we've been waiting for years, seeing it come to fruition. I'm still grappling with.
Dragon SpaceX on Dragon
really
the ground.
Incredible.
Video is
and
no
Shiv,
interior.
it was an honor doing this with you today.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. They
Dragon copies. Thanks, Anna.
can't step on the crew. That's
step on the
rule.
yeah.
But, there were some really great words there from all the flight control teams about how this was a joint partnership between NASA and SpaceX. I think everyone is over the moon here at SpaceX for this. Bob and Doug have got to be excited, and now back to business to get the vestibule ready to go, and then get them on board the station. So again, thank you for following us. Please continue to watch as Gary takes over for the hatch opening portion. And keep following our social media for more updates on what's happening with Hatch Open.
Over to you, Gary.
Thank you, Shiva. Thank you, Dan. What an incredible flight for Bob and Doug, lifting off just yesterday and now in space, attached to the International Space Station. Some kind words all over after docking at 9:16 a.m. Central, and a hard mate just 11 minutes later. We're still not done here. We're going to take you through the pressurization sequence and eventually hatch opening of the International Space Station.
SpaceX Dragon on Dragon to ground. Cabin mic check come.
And I hear you loud and clear on Dragon to ground. How many?
Loud and clear.
Excellent.
Good comm checks. We still have a lot of work to do here. We're going to pressurize the vestibule and eventually get...
And SpaceX Dragon with an update from Bob. It looks like a white tooth on the leg zipper as well. We'll take a close look if we can see anything else that might have resulted in that lower leak check pressure.
Copy. Really appreciate the report. Thank you.
Teams behind me will be configuring the Dragon and the International Space Station to welcome Bob and Doug aboard. First, of course, the International Space Station attitude control moment gyros, really holding the Dragon in place through the hard capture sequence. We'll start enabling those thrusters and pressurizing the vestibule. It'll take about an hour until we're able to get the hatch open. The teams here in Mission Control Houston, Orbit 2, led by Flight Director Zeb Scoville, will be taking us through that process. Aboard the International Space Station, Commander Chris Cassidy standing by in Node 2. Right in front of that is the pressurized mating adapter. He recently opened up the hatch to introduce some of the station air and mix it, get a nice mix in there, avoiding some CO2 pockets. That hatch you see just beyond Chris Cassidy there is normally closed. He was able to open it a little bit earlier today, mix some of that cabin air, and get rid of those CO2 pockets, make sure it's all clean and ready for Bob and Doug. He closed it shortly after just to make sure no FOD or foreign objects, anything were to float in there that would inhibit any hatch opening process today. One of the next milestones for Chris Cassidy will be to open up that hatch. He's got some cameras you see placed within that node. We'll get some good views of the hatch opening and welcoming Bob and Doug here in just about an hour. A big moment in history today, May 31st, 2020. Just on the other side of that hatch, Bob Benken and Doug Hurley have successfully arrived at the International Space Station. Still a couple of milestones to get through. Before we can open up that hatch, it's going to take some time. First, pressurizing the vestibule in between the station and Dragon. We'll bring that up to pressure. It's going to take some time for that pressure to stabilize. Of course, the temperature within that vestibule causes a little bit of swing, so we'll just wait for that to pressurize or to stabilize before opening up that hatch. Here at Mission Control Houston, Flight Director Zeb Scoville welcoming the director of the NASA Johnson Space Center, Mark Geyer. We'll have a few other VIPs here in the room to welcome Bob and Doug once they get through that hatch. Now again, this repressurization and hatch opening process is going to take some time. You see now we're going to have some intermittent losses with the communication from the International Space Station. You're seeing now the International Space Station Flight Control Room led by Flight Director Zeb Scoville. Just a handover of some of those audio and visual communications. We'll be regaining those shortly. Might lose them intermittently throughout the repressurization process, but the teams here will be monitoring all of the procedures, again, pressurizing that vestibule and eventually getting to that hatch opening. From right to left there, seated, you see Flight Director Zeb Scoville. It was he who was leading the teams for both the launch of Bob and Doug over at the Cape. He was leading the teams here in Mission Control Houston. You just saw the Johnson Space Center Director Mark Geyer walk off to the side. Seated next to Zeb Scoville, Joshua Kutrick. He is one of the members of the most recent class of astronauts, the class of 2017. Canadian Space Agency astronaut, went through candidate training and officially became an astronaut just recently. Again, a few milestones to get through to that hatch opening. First, the International Space Station attitude control has been successfully switched from control moment gyro only control, enabling some of the thrusters on the International Space Station. We also just received word that Dragon is successfully receiving power.
Ground ISS power connection has been established.
And there you have it. Dragon is successfully receiving power from the International Space Station.
And Dragon copies on Dragon to ground that power has been established. Just let us know when we should make a hardline comm check.
We will, Co. Thank you.
For those of you just joining us, you are getting a live look at NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, commander of the International Space Station, doing some of the prep work to open up the hatch and get ready to welcome Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley aboard the International Space Station. They launched successfully yesterday at 2:22 p.m. Central Time, 3:22 p.m. Eastern, and docked successfully with a contact and capture just a little bit ago at 9:16 a.m. Central Time, 10:16 Eastern. Now, some of the milestones to get that hatch open have already taken place. First, attitude control. For some of the docking sequence, for the initial contact and capture, attitude control was on Russian thrusters. That was moved to control moment gyros for hard mate, making sure that everything lined up and we got those ready-to-hook indicators green before driving those hooks. The attitude control has since been switched to enable some thrusters on the International Space Station. We did get confirmation of good power being delivered from ISS to the Dragon. Next will be to test some hard line communication between Dragon and the International Space Station.
Dragon End Station. It's Houston calling on the Big Loop. We're prepared and getting ready to transition the comm system to hardline, at which time we're going to do a couple comm checks. We just want to make sure everybody's on board with that and aware. So Dragon first, maybe let me know if you hear this and if you're go with that plan.
Yeah, Houston, Endeavor on the Big Loop. We had you loud and clear.
Houston Station copies and concurs.
Okay, Endeavor and Station, we have it loud and clear on RF right now. We are putting it in work now, so transitioning comm system to hardline, and we'll call you back for voice checks momentarily.
Endeavor copies.
This is Mission Control Houston. The voice you just heard was Capcom Joshua Kutrick from here in Mission Control Houston, relaying through the big loop that's integrated communications with Dragon and the International Space Station, just taking us through those procedures until we get to hatch opening. Now there's an umbilical connection with Dragon, connecting Dragon to the International Space Station. We did get good confirmation that power is flowing from the International Space Station to Dragon. Next, we'll be proceeding with some of the communications checks. The big loop established on the C2V2 Common Communications for Visiting Vehicle through some of the last legs of the rendezvous and docking of Dragon to the International Space Station. We'll switch that over to hardline communications, testing that out here shortly. We're going to get some good views of station today. You see Chris Cassidy working inside Node 2. Just on the other side is the hatch. That hatch is separating between the International Space Station and the pressurized mating adapter. One more hatch to go after that. That hatch opens up to the Dragon hatch with Bob Benkin and Doug Hurley on the other side. Just surrounding Chris Cassidy from this view, you can see a series of cameras. We're going to get some great views from Node 2 there on the left, a couple of high-definition cameras. On the right, a 360 VR camera. Part of an initiative to engage viewers and provide views that from the International Space Station that have never been seen before. We'll get to see some of those 360-degree views later after they're configured and stitched on the ground, now being recorded during this historic moment today, May 31st, 2020.
Affirmative, we are on the same page. Those steps in the execution note are all that's needed.
In work.
camera. He's got cameras situated all over Node 2, pointing right towards that hatch. On the other side, we'll be welcoming Bob Benkin and Doug Hurley after pressurization of the vestibule, and we'll start beginning hatch opening after that.
Yeah, we copy MPEV open, Chris.
Another handover of communication from the tracking and data relay satellites, providing video and audio communication from the International Space Station, now integrated with the Dragon Power. Still looking towards some of those hard-line communication checks. Again, we'll lose communication intermittently as the International Space Station flies 269 statute miles.
Station Houston on 2 for Chris. We're go for open on the Node 2 forward hatch.
Regaining some of that video from International Space Station, Chris Cassidy given the go to open that Node 2 forward hatch. Again, he opened it a little bit earlier today to allow some of the station air to mix into the pressurized mating adapter. There it is. Now again, there's a few more hatches to open until we are able to welcome Bob and Doug aboard the International Space Station. You're looking through the hatch into the pressurized mating adapter. There's another hatch down there through the pressurized mating adapter that opens up to the International Docking Adapter.
Houston on 3, hey Josh, there was zero on DPDT, and the Node 2 forward hatch is open.
And Chris, we copy Node 2 forward hatch open. We concur your go for the next yellow activity. That's your 1515 activity. It's step 2 in 2.102 Crew Dragon ISS arrival through hatch opening. Basically, you're going to cycle the 8-pass equalization valve.
And Dragon SpaceX on Dragon to ground. If desired, reference procedure 4.400 to monitor vestibule pressurization.
And copies small.
SpaceX Dragon on Dragon to ground. For 4.012, we've completed up to Section 5, and we've got a timer started for 1 hour.
Copy, completed through Section 5, and your suits are drying, and you have started a timer for 1 hour. With that, do we have your permission to come back on board?
Get you back on board.
We copy. We are go to come back on board. And with that, you are go to perform sections 1 through 3 of 4.400. We do recommend deferring your step 2.1 for the waste system flush until closer to hatch opening. In section 3, as you are performing your inventory, please collect all your food and water bottle trash and consolidate it into the 2 trash bags within their common bags in location 18. You will transfer the plastic bags containing this trash to ISS for disposal during a scheduled activity after ISS ingress. And do note that you are welcome to defer this inventory until after you eat your meal that is scheduled for right about now.
Okay, Anna, if you could give us 5 minutes before you guys come back on board, we do have some clothing config to complete. Understand we've got to go for sections 1, 2, and 3 of 4.400, and we will consolidate our trash into the bags provided in location 18. And we'll defer the docked waste configuration, section 2 of 4.400, until it gets closer to hatch opening.
Station, we copy 1507.
We copy, and we will wait 5 minutes before coming on board, and we'll check with you before we do so if we don't hear from you first.
Copy, ready.
Thanks, Anna.
This is Mission Control Houston. You're listening to crews on board the International Space Station and Dragon prepare for opening the hatch. You're seeing Chris Cassidy aboard the International Space Station already opened the hatch to the pressurized mating adapter just below that hatchway you see at the center of the screen here. On the other side of the hatch is the hatchway to the International docking adapter. On the other side of that, the recently docked Crew Dragon. Vestibule pressurization is underway. This will equalize the pressure between Dragon and the International Space Station. Once it does come up to pressurization, it will take some time to equalize that pressure because of the temperature difference in the vestibule. Just take some time to stabilize.
Dragon, Endeavor, it's Houston. Calling you on hardline now for a voice check. How do you read? Endeavour, it's Houston calling. Space to ground 2 via hardline now for a voice check. Do you read?
Houston Cleveland. Dragon voice check. How do you read us? Counting 121, 122, 123, 124, 125. Houston Station, space to ground 2.
And Station Houston on 2, Anatoly, we hear you loud and clear. We're going to swap a couple minor things here and try Dragon again. We're still trying to get calm with Dragon. Stand by 1.
Dragon again. Dragon FM, voice check. How do you read us? Counting 121, 122, 123, 124, 125.
And Station Houston on 2. Everybody, we'll just stand by for a few minutes. We're going to try to raise Dragon by another means. Stand by. And Endeavour, it's Houston calling on Dragon to ground 1. We're trying to reach you via hardline. Just not sure if you're receiving it or not. Let us know at your convenience.
And Houston from Endeavour, we're hearing quite a bit of echo on the other loop that appears to be connected. It's unintelligible, but we do have you loud and clear on the Dragon to ground.
And Endeavour, Houston on Dragon to ground. Thanks for that. Very helpful. We'll take a look, and we have you loud and clear on Dragon to ground as well. So we're gonna continue to work it and try to give you a call back in the next few minutes on hardline.
Endeavour copies. Thanks.
This is Mission Control Houston working through the steps to pressurize the vestibule. We did have confirmation that vestibule pressurization was underway. We do have power flowing from the International Space Station to Dragon after it docked for a contact and capture at 9:16 a.m. Central Time, 10:16 a.m. Eastern, just earlier this morning. A few other milestones to reach. We need good audio communication hard-lined through the umbilical where Dragon is currently docked on the other side of that hatch, providing now power, just making sure those hard-line communications are intact. Working through that as we count down towards the milestones of opening that hatch.
SpaceX Dragon on Dragon to ground.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and in section 1 of 4.400, the tablet state of charge are 66 for Doug's and 32 for mine.
Copy 6-6 for Doug, 3-2 for Bob. And do we have your permission to come back on board with video now?
Yeah, go ahead and come on board. We just may have to take it down at some point, as you might imagine, but come on board.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Station Houston on 3 for Chris. Your convenience, but just an update on the comm status.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Chris, you've probably been able to tell we've run into some minor issues trying to get hardline established, so we're working that here, and we're going to be reattempting the comm checks as soon as we think we're go. I'll give you a heads up on that. And then regarding stuff, just get-aheads, I was going to pass along to do the teardown from steps 3 and 4 in the approach monitoring, but I just saw it go gray, so have you done that already?
Hold on just 1 second. Which one was that? Maybe I fat fingered the wrong procedure.
Yeah, no, it's subtle. So it's in the execution note for Dragon approach monitoring. As we were monitoring Dragon earlier in the day, down in the execution note are the teardown steps.
I'm here in the cupola right now. I'll take care of it. It's not gray, but momentarily will be.
Sounds good. And I'm also hearing on that we have done on the ground steps 1 through 4, so it's just 5 and 6 left for you in that teardown procedure.
Copy that.
Copy, Chris. Thanks for that. And just about to hit the button and reattempt the hardline checks with Dragon.
Okay, copy.
Endeavor, it's Houston calling via hardline. Voice check, how do you read?
Horizontal station, say again.
And station standby, Endeavor. This is a call for Endeavor via hardline. Voice check, how do you read?
Houston, Endeavor, completely unreadable. It's skipping pretty badly.
And Endeavor, it's Houston on Dragon to ground. We heard your reply loud and clear. Understand we're still broken. We're working it. Thanks for the patience.
We got you, Josh. That's exactly the case. Thanks.
Dragon FM, voice check, how do you read me? Counting 1 to 1, 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 5.
station on 2 for Anatoly. Anatoly, we're hearing you loud and clear in Houston. We seem to have an issue still with COM2 Dragon, so we'll just have you stand by. We'll let you know when we're ready to retry. Thanks for your patience.
Okay, call me on Space to Ground 1, please.
Yeah, Anna, we're managing the collection of the used water bottles and other items as well as our meal, and just looking to understand a little bit better how closely we're to hatch opening or another timeline milestone. We're kind of running to the end of the tablet here with meal 5 that started about, 25 minutes ago or so, and so just wanting to understand how much time we've got in front of us.
In Dragon SpaceX, we estimate we are about an hour to Dragon hatch opening.
Copy that, Anna. Thanks for those words. It just helps us manage getting things done. And looks like you guys are on board. Welcome aboard, I guess, the integrated space station now, huh?
Indeed. Thank you so much. We're excited to be here.
Endeavor, Houston calling over hardline for a voice check. How do you read us now?
Houston, mission or station from Endeavour. I'm not sure the location of that last call, but still quite a bit of skipping and unreadable.
And Endeavour, it's Houston, loud and clear on Dragon to ground. We heard your response, so we're in the same situation. We're hearing you, you're not hearing us. We have one more troubleshooting item that we're going to put in work now, so we'll give that a try and then maybe call it for the day. We'll let you know.